So let's move on to our next speaker. Bernhard Kalkbrenner is a senior manager at the Digital Hub Mobility. Bernhard, you have your 45-minute slot, and if possible, we're going to try to take the same, to structure the talking more or less the same way as in Tobias's case. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Let me just share my screen. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Bernhard Kalkbrenner. I'm a senior manager at the Digital Hub Mobility. And what is the Digital Hub Mobility? We are a team of experts in the field of mobility at the Technical University of Munich's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. And so the focus of my talk will be on innovation in the field of mobility. And I will run through 4 sections. So first, so that you better understand who we are at UnternehmerTUM, I quickly want to present UnternehmerTUM and the ecosystem approach that we drive here. Then I want to go into innovation, talk a bit about innovation definitions, and give some principles here. And then in the next section, talk about trends, opportunities in mobility, and at the end, present our approach, insights from experiments that we have conducted, and hopefully give you some interesting insights that you can also use for your work and the future to build a more sustainable and better mobility system. So UnternehmerTUM is, as I said, the Center for Innovation and Business Creation at Technical University of Munich. We are a kind of an own organization, a non-profit organization with the vision to turn visions into value. And we are one of the largest entrepreneurship centers in Europe. And as I said, closely connected to the Technical University here. And what we do is we actually work in two areas. The first is really entrepreneurship, education, very close with students at the TUM here. So some of the numbers you can see on the top. So we have around 50 scalable startups per year. And the other component is that we really drive innovation together with corporate partners, with SMEs, really bringing together the whole ecosystem of new solutions and innovations. And we see ourselves as a large open B2B innovation platform. And this is pretty much the idea behind UnternehmerTUM. And I think this is also relevant for other innovation hotspots around the world. So we define ourselves by bringing together different players. So we are closely connected to the universities. We have the idea to help researchers, scientists to found their own startups, to build business models for the insights that they generate in their research. We bring established companies on board, closely collaborate with venture capital, and really try to build an ecosystem that helps to create the new solutions for the future. So what are some examples from our ecosystem? So here you see a couple of startups that were founded in our ecosystem. So one of the most important one is Flixbus, one of the largest bus operator all around the world now. They just, I think, this year bought Greyhound in the US and are very active all around the world. starting as a small startup 10 years ago here in Munich. Another interesting startup is ESA Aerospace, rocket company that is also very successful in the new space area. So this was a bit of a basic or kind of a foundation of what UnternehmerTUM is. And so I already mentioned innovation a couple of times. So it's probably worth thinking about what it actually is. And when you look it up, you will find lots of different definitions. And I will just show you some here. And probably can just go through them. So it's what you can see here. It's about value creation. It's about inventions, but also commercializations, consumer perspectives, and this aspect of value as an important part of a definition of innovation. So now the question is actually, why do we need innovation? And I think there's many huge challenges out there, and to overcome these challenges, we need new solutions and we need new approaches, be it for urbanization, be it for climate change issues, digitization, and all the horrible crisis you have in Ukraine. I'm sure we need new solutions and new approaches to rebuild the country and the cities. And the sweet spot that we see is actually in the middle here. So we need opportunities that are in line with the human needs, that create business opportunities, but they are also feasible from a technological point of view, and in the best case, and that's what we would like to promote, that also have a sustainable impact on the world. And our approach is that you really need the right people and the different players to actually achieve these innovations. So especially in the field of mobility, you need, for example, corporate partners, established companies, be it from the mobility sphere or from the insurance field or from the IT area. You need startups who have a specific new innovative product, but you also need cities and regulation to actually change mobility and mobility behavior and enable new solutions. And what you also see here is that we always think about users, citizens, and also engage and are closely in touch with science and politics. So from our experience, this ecosystem approach, bringing together all the different players, is crucial if you really want to make progress and achieve sustainable change. So in theory, innovation looks quite easy and linear. But this is at least not what we in our projects have experienced. For us, it usually rather looks like this. So it's a bit of a chaos. It's going back and forth, and also sometimes it can be frustrating. So what we have developed is a process that helps us to work together with different players, different partners, and really achieve outcome and an added value in a short amount of time. We often do around 6 to 12 month innovation projects with different partners, And this process helps us to actually, to get through this chaos. And so the process from really connecting the people so that everybody at the beginning understands the needs of the other players, that everybody gets to know the other partners on board. We need to understand what actually the problem is, explore possible solutions, going back and forth, learning, and then develop a specific solution for the specific problem that we identified, launch it, and then grow and scale the solution. So this was the section on innovation, and now I want to dive into the mobility sphere and explain a couple of aspects that actually Tobias already mentioned in his presentation. So things around road space requirements will also be part of this section. So mobility is quality of life. It's enabling social life. It's a very positive aspect, but it also has negative sides. So it needs space, as we've heard, it needs energy, but not only energy, it also pollutes the air, impacts the climate, creates noise, creates stress. It needs time. So there's lots of negative side effects of mobility. And when we look at urban mobility, there is specific challenges that are more pressing in the urban areas. As Tobias already mentioned, so the whole structure of cities, how cities are planned, has a huge impact on the mobility of people. And nowadays we have this struggle between visions of an urban future, but also the cities, how they look right now. And in reality, it's often a picture like on the left side here, and the vision is more green, more livable, more diverse, more modular. But how do we actually achieve a change from the left side to the right side? This is a pretty big question. And one key aspect is space efficiency. And this also is a quite famous example. So when you look at the people here in front, those are all the people who would be sitting in their car on the picture, and this is how it would look like just in a regular day, like now, in just ICE cars. And this is how it looks if all the cars would be electric cars. So it's exactly the same space requirements, and probably not the solution to our traffic problems. And without having any regulation or any clever rules, this would also look like this if all the cars would be autonomous. So, and what you can see here, so this is how it looks on the left side. The same amount of people would fit in this one bus or would fit on the bicycles in the middle here. And I have to say, so I didn't make the pictures, but this is from a website called Cycling Promotion. So, but I think it's an interesting picture to really think about space and the requirements of means of transport. So what are now the trends in the mobility field? So often they are defined by automated or autonomous driving, about connected solutions, shared mobility, shared solutions like car sharing, but also other types of sharing, and electric, including also other greenhouse gas neutral fuels. So these are the, I would say, that the large trends that are also mentioned or highlighted from many large automotive companies. But there's much more when it comes to mobility, not so much only from an automotive perspective, but we have a huge potential for more flexible, more customer-centric public transport services, on-demand mobility services. I'm sure we will hear more about these aspects later on. We have, at least in Germany, interesting discussions about how the interaction of the energy system and the mobility system works when it comes to electric mobility. We have micro-mobility solution, urban air transport, Hyperloop. We have discussions about how to recycle or build, for example, cars in a circular way. We have discussions about city planning in 50-minute cities, mobility budgets, and so on and so on. So there's lots of opportunities that we can really use to improve mobility and to make it easier to be mobile in a more sustainable way. So how can we now improve the traffic situation? And a quite famous concept is avoid, shift, and improve. So what you can see here on the left side is we can reduce traffic. Less cars on the streets, for example, through a home office, by pooling, but also, for example, through city planning with shorter distances and better accessibility. But on the other side, we need to think about how can we make it easier and more attractive to use public transport, to use more sustainable means of transport than just a private car used by a single person. And we need to make the left side here on the right chart more attractive, increase the attractiveness, and think about ways how people can at the end switch their behavior. And possible means are better public transport services, thinking about externalities. So how can we actually think about pricing space? So for example, pricing parking, and thinking about infrastructure, be it for bicycles or other means of transport. And so there's lots of possible solutions. There's not an easy way, I would say. And many of the aspects that I mentioned, for example, road pricing would have significant effects on the people and on how people move. And we think that this can only be realized when we collaborate. And the technology, even though it's very important to push new technologies, is not sufficient to actually solve the mobility issues. We need the right regulation, we need acceptance from citizens, and we need, at the end, behavior change to achieve a more sustainable transport system and mobility system. So, keeping that in mind, I would like to explain how our approach looks like. Digital mobility, that's the team at UnternehmerTUM that I'm working at. So we are a team of experts in the field of mobility, and we address the traffic problems and want to build together with our partners new solutions. And we acknowledge that currently the traffic in cities and metropolitan areas reaches its limits. And we can only solve that by working together. So corporate startups, we need municipalities and politics, but we also need the citizens to work together towards a more sustainable energy system and mobility system. And our vision is that we want to accelerate the transition towards a more sustainable mobility system, also keeping in mind the livability and all the aspects of livable spaces. And we are part of UnternehmerTUM, as I've already mentioned, but we are also the national hub of the Digital Hub initiative by the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. And there we also follow this whole ecosystem approach that we have different locations all around Germany that try to build an ecosystem of startups, corporates, small and medium-sized companies working together to build solutions to the challenges that we are facing. So how does this look like in detail? So we have corporate partners that we're working with that you can see on the right side. Some of them might be familiar. It's from tech companies like Infineon to the public transport operator in Munich, Stadtwerke München, to SAP, the Deutsche Bahn, national rail operator, to BMW or Nokia. And we have a large startup ecosystem. So this is just a part of it, and it's steadily growing. And we're always happy to support startups from all around the world to actually improve their solutions. And what I've mentioned, that we also closely collaborate with cities, in particular with the city of Munich and the city of Hamburg. And last but not least, we are closely connected to the university, to European clusters like EIT, to the federal ministries. So we really try to bring together these different players to move things forward. And how do we do this? So at the end, it's like a journey. So we start on the left side, and at the beginning, we offer opportunities to connect. We give inspiration, and we then pretty much focus on the second and the third step. So in our ecosystem, we really want to co-create and develop new solutions, also test them and implement them, and really build new products, new solutions together with our partners. And I want to go into detail here a little bit about the different offerings that we have. So one is our Digital Mobility Lab. It's a 3-month program for young talents, be it bachelor students or master students or just graduates who are interested in building new digital products. And this is a program that is run 3 times a year. Next time actually starting in January, but applications are already closed. But if this is interesting for some of you, there is a link down here on the right, and my colleagues are happy to answer your questions if you're interested in developing new digital products in the field of mobility, but also in other fields. And what I'm mainly doing in my daily life is this co-innovation program that we call Citizen Mobility. And what we do is we bring together corporate startups and cities and build prototypes, run urban experiments, and follow our mission to improve mobility together in an experimental style and citizen-centered. And we do that focusing on solutions that are out there now that we can apply now. So really an applied hands-on approach that we built in the last years from idea to a prototype in 6 months with our multi-stakeholder approach, closely working together with startups, pushing their ideas forward, and together understanding and developing a specific solution that we then also prototype and test together with users, with citizens in the city. And the idea behind this is that we really want to learn from real testing and real experiments together with users and citizens. This has a pretty clear setup. So we work together with corporate partners, startups, cities, and citizens, and focus always on the needs of the citizens and the users to build a really clever solution that also has a value for users, that has a business potential for partners, or a value potential for cities. And so this was now pretty much theoretical explanation. And I now want to give you a bit of an understanding how these experiments, how our prototypes look like. So I have, I think, 3 or 4 examples that I would like to present. So the first one was an experiment called Unparking, or in German Umparken, that focused on reimagine how public space looks and to also reimagine your mobility behavior. And it was a 4-week test period with 8 households in a specific neighborhood here in Munich, Germany. And the idea was all the private cars would be parked outside of the city, and we redesign one street in the neighborhood of the citizens. And how this looks like is shown here. So this is a little street here in Munich, pretty much in the city center. And we identified this little street and found actually that the street is actually not necessary. There's no real function to it besides people parking their car. And it's located right next to a little park that you can see on the right side, which is actually could be a quite nice place. So what we did, we actually visualized first how this could look like without cars being parked on the street. So changing from a standard street to a little park with more different types of usage. And then we also implemented that. And the idea was not only to redesign how the street looks like, but actually to offer a mobility budget to all the participating households. So the idea was that all the households shouldn't use, or were not allowed to use their private car, but they could use all the other options, all the other services that are out there in Munich, or that were at that time out there in Munich, from car sharing to public transport to stationary car sharing, rental cars, taxis, pedelecs, e-bikes, and what else? E-kick scooters. So really all different means that are out there, and this was a quite successful experiment that gave people the opportunity to really experience new solutions and rethink their mobility behavior. And what else? We built a first prototype of what we call a Velo Hub, which is this parking rack here for bicycles, together with a designer agency, Design It. And what actually developed out of the project is the Velo Hub on the right side here. So not as much a prototype, but a real product, a bicycle parking solution with a practical and social value that also has a space for hanging out on the rooftop. And actually, the solution just won the German Sustainability Prize and the German Design Award. So this was interesting to see how from such a prototype on the left side, with the right partners, things can develop and from small to real products can be created. So I want to go into another project called What is a Mobility Point? So this is actually based on the fact that in Munich and also in many other German cities like Hamburg, like Berlin, Bremen, many large cities, actually there will be mobility hubs built in the next years. In Munich, it's I think around 200 mobility stations that should be built in the next couple of years. And we actually wanted to explore this topic very much from the beginning, together with citizens in one neighborhood here in Munich. And so the idea is, okay, how can actually cities or spaces look like if we rethink how many cars are parking on the street, and what could be a value or a good opportunity to use the space to provide better mobility and also other values. So actually, why does the cities like the city of Munich or others, why do they actually want to build mobility hubs or mobility stations? So at the end, it's about fostering multimodal mobility. It's enabling mobility without private cars, to actually rethink the space that we are using and to increase livability of public space. And with these reasons in mind, we went out on the street and together with two startups actually worked on issues how data can be used to find the right spots to build mobility hubs, but also how these specific mobility hubs at specific location should look like, what kind of services should be used there. So actually analyzing the current, for example, drop-offs of shared mobility solutions. So another relevant part of our activities focuses on electric mobility, and I want to give a short overview of the two experiments that we ran in the last 1.5 years or so. So one is, I think, an important aspect, how can we actually use existing infrastructure, existing resources more effectively. This not only applies to the topic that I present here, but it's actually a topic that is much larger than that. So, but what did we do? We called our concept, or we developed a concept together with our partners, called Charging Together, with the idea to build new charging solutions for people driving electric vehicles. What is shown here in this sketch is the office building, actually, that I'm also right now working at. And we have charging infrastructure. And this charging infrastructure is actually installed so that the users of the office building can charge their car here. But what we thought about is that actually during, in the evening, at night, during weekends, there is actually almost nobody charging there because the people are not working. So why shouldn't we use this infrastructure, open it to the public, to the citizens living nearby, and test how such a concept should look like? And this is what we then also did. So we had an experiment with different phases where we tested different functionalities and were able to understand the problems that are created when you have different user groups. And this is actually a topic that also applies, for example, to parking garages where we, for example, we have a lot of them here in office buildings or in other buildings that are not always used at the weekend or during night times. So we think about ways on how can we actually change that and build better solutions in that direction. And last but not least, that's just a project that we just recently finished called Trusted Green Charging that focuses on electric mobility and the aspect around the power supply of electric vehicles. So at the end, we need to adjust our charging behavior to the availability of renewable energy. And this is a prototype that we built also here in our building. And I will quickly show you a video on the next slide that explains what we have done here. So just as a first insight, so we tried to connect this whole energy and mobility sector that is needed when it comes to electric mobility. And we built a blockchain-based transaction platform that enables trusted green charging. And what that actually means, I will show you on the next slide. All right. So this was the overview of some of the experiments that we run in the last years, and this is also the end of my presentation. So I quickly want to wrap up what I've been talking about. So we talked about, or I talked about, innovation and why it's needed. We think that the ecosystem approach is a relevant approach to really achieve innovation, to create new startups, to help young talents, young researchers to develop new ideas by bringing together an ecosystem that enables that. I presented our innovation process that helps us to actually collaborate and create value in a short amount of time. And I presented a couple of challenges and also trends and possible solutions in the field of mobility. And last but not least, I presented our approach, which is collaborating, prototyping, and learning from doing. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your questions, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernhard, for this exhaustive presentation. There's a lot of very interesting things that are happening there. Of course, you know, that when you started discussing about innovation ecosystem, the first thing that came to my mind was the difficulty in aligning at times you know, contrasting interests, maybe conflicting interests between the stakeholders. How do you manage this? So how do you bring, you know, how you make this work? Let's say.
Yeah. So I think that the starting point is always to actually define a specific goal or direction that you want to go to, so the key challenge is then everybody has his own hidden agenda often. Yeah. So even for us, so we are kind of a neutral platform. So we stand in the middle, bringing together startups, corporate, city, and we try to understand each single person and have one-on-ones with them and so on. But it's, that's always the main challenge. So we have specific workshops and tools that we use to align the partners, to really, write down what we actually what we want to achieve, and in particular which problem we want to address. So in our project, is often the solution is not clear at the beginning. So but we define a specific problem and then we develop a specific solution. But yeah, so I totally agree. Good point. There's no simple answer, but just asking, talking to partners and bringing everybody together, having a joint vision. I think that always helps.
Yeah, and perhaps in more detail, because what I found fascinating is the fact that this little street of having no cars and changing its usage and so on and so forth ended up working. So I'm just wondering why it worked, you know, only to understand in what cases it wouldn't work, what to be offered differently. So, you know, if I'm a resident and I need to use, or I need to commute to work maybe 1 hour by public transportation versus 25 minutes by private car, how do I, you know, because you mentioned change behavior, but at some point, even if you have all the goodwill to use public transportation and so on and so forth, you have to pick up the kid at the kindergarten. There's no way you can physically So how
so I'm not, thanks for the question. So I'm not saying that, you know, I think cars have a quite high value for users. Yeah, so cars will have a role in the future, but we need to rethink how we use them, and we need to share, we need to pool, and we also need. I think we need space in cities to actually park cars, and maybe not on the street, maybe somehow in the garages, and for sure less cars. But yeah, so if it's much more convenient and much more or much faster, to get to work or to kindergarten or whatever by car, then it totally makes sense for people to take their car. So I think then we need to rethink about, okay, how can public transport offer better solutions, or how can we introduce new public transport services? And I'm sure this is part of the next talk later on. So I'm sure Tom can talk about that in a much more experienced way. But what I have to mention here, coming back to the experiment that we did. So what worked is that we actually run this experiment for 4 weeks. But what we also experienced was a huge criticism of the citizens living there. So it's not as easy and nice as it looks on a picture. So especially the people living right at the street, they were not a fan of what we were doing. And at the end, the street now looks like it looked at the beginning. So this is it was not a permanent transformation. It was a short-term transformation, and we got lots of positive feedback and we got lots of negative feedback, nothing in the middle. So people are either very happy and they think this is the best thing ever, this should look like this in the future, and there's the others who are total opponents. And I think this is also the same in all kind of similar projects.
Yeah, I mean, guerrilla urbanism is quite polarizing, right? In this respect, yeah. People would definitely not want to change, and there are people who are absolutely keen on changing. Thus, we get this type of reactions.
Yeah.
Many thanks. So I really hope
we're
going to see a digital mobility lab that you guys run, open up a branch in Kyiv. I think there's going to be great use to this approach and helping.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Absolutely, and helping generate ideas. There's a lot of very smart people who are willing to do a lot, and in a sense, I think many problems are also present in Ukrainian cities. If you look at parking, if you look at traffic, there are also some attempts to find solutions and so on and so forth. In some cases, some things might be easier. In some cases, some things might be more complicated. But maybe the different set of constraints offers a different environment for you to test some ideas, or that might work, what could work also in Germany.